Imagine it's 1941. You're a pilot, thousands of feet above the English Channel. The air is filled with the roar of engines and the chatter of machine guns. Suddenly your plane is hit, smoke fills the cockpit. You have seconds to bail out before your aircraft plunges into the icy, unforgiving waters below. Your chances of survival? Almost zero. Hypothermia could claim you in minutes. This was the terrifying reality for thousands of airmen during the Battle of Britain and beyond. But in the midst of this relentless conflict, one of the strangest, most surprisingly humane inventions of the war appeared, bobbing in the waves, the Rettungsboje, or rescue buoy. This wasn't just a simple life raft. This was a floating, self-contained survival station, a beacon of hope in a sea of chaos. Conceived by the German Ministry of Air Navigation in 1940, these buoys were a direct response to the staggering number of Luftwaffe pilots being lost over the channel. General Ernst Udet, a flying ace himself, pushed for their development, understanding firsthand the grim fate that awaited any downed airman. The idea was simple yet revolutionary. If you can't rescue them immediately, give them a place to rescue themselves. So, what did these floating safe houses actually look like? Picture a large, watertight metal container, about 13 feet long and almost 8 feet wide, with a small 7-foot-tall tower sticking out of the top. They were anchored to the seabed, designed to stay put in the choppy channel waters. The entire structure was painted a bright, unmissable yellow, making it a visible target for desperate men scanning the horizon. A railing ran around the outside, giving exhausted airmen something to grab onto as they pulled themselves from the frigid sea. Access was through a watertight hatch on the deck, leading down into a surprisingly well-equipped interior. Inside this cramped space, which could hold up to 4 people, was everything a crew needed to survive. It was a stark contrast to the violent death they had just escaped. There were dry clothes, thick blankets, and first aid kits to treat injuries. For sustenance, they provided tinned food, biscuits, and fresh water enough to last for several days. But the Germans also understood the psychological toll. So they included cognac to warm the nerves, cigarettes to calm them, and even board games and playing cards to pass the long, anxious hours. It was a bizarre touch of civility in the middle of a brutal war. The tower wasn't just for show either. It held a mast with a Nazi flag and a yellow and red striped flag that could be hoisted to signal that the buoy was occupied. An SOS transmitter could send a distress signal, and a system of signal lamps allowed for communication with rescue boats or aircraft. Basically, once inside, a downed crew could warm up, treat their wounds, eat, and then actively signal for help. It transformed a death sentence into a waiting game. The deployment of these buoys began in the summer of 1940. They were strategically placed in the areas with the heaviest air traffic in combat, like the Strait of Dover. Initially, the British were baffled. What were these strange yellow objects appearing in the channel? Espionage devices? Weather stations? Mines? The Royal Navy was suspicious and even ordered some to be destroyed. But they soon captured one and realized its true purpose. And this is where the story takes an even more fascinating turn. The British, recognizing a good idea when they saw one, didn't just destroy them, they learned from them. While they were initially hesitant, the Royal Air Force saw the value in such a system for their own pilots. This led to the development of their own more advanced versions, known as air-sea rescue floats. The British models were larger, could hold more men, and were often better equipped, sometimes with a small galley for cooking. So you had a situation where both German and British rescue floats were dotting the English Channel. And this created some truly incredible, almost unbelievable scenarios. Imagine a German crew shot down and freezing, finally reaching a Rettungsboje, only to find it already occupied by the very RAF pilots who had shot them down, or vice versa. There are documented and anecdotal accounts of this happening. In the confined space of a rescue buoy, enemies became temporary roommates. The universal need for survival trumped national allegiance. They shared food, tended to each other's wounds, and waited together to see which side's rescue boat would arrive first. It's a powerful reminder that beneath the uniforms, they were all just young men, scared and desperate to live. The existence of these buoys raises a complex moral question. In a total war where civilian cities were being bombed, is there a place for such humanitarian gestures? For the German command, it was purely practical. A trained pilot was an incredibly valuable asset, expensive and time-consuming to replace. Losing one to the cold sea was a waste of resources. The Rettungsboje was an investment, designed to preserve the fighting strength of the Luftwaffe. The humane aspect was a welcome byproduct, not the primary goal. Yet for the men who used them, these buoys were nothing short of a miracle. They were the difference between a lonely death in the water and a chance to see another sunrise, a chance to be rescued and, for some, to fly and fight again. Over the course of the war, hundreds of airmen from both sides owed their lives to these strange floating shelters. As the war progressed and air-sea rescue techniques became more sophisticated with faster boats and long-range aircraft, the reliance on these static buoys diminished. After the war, most were removed, scrapped, or simply lost to the sea. Today, very few remain. There's a beautifully restored example in a museum in the Netherlands, a silent testament to this unique chapter of wartime history. The story of the Rettungsboje is a perfect microcosm of the paradoxes of war. It was an invention born from brutal conflict, designed with cold military logic, yet it fostered moments of shared humanity and compassion between sworn enemies. It shows that even in the darkest of times, the instinct to survive and to help others survive can create the most unexpected connections. It's a strange, fascinating footnote in the grand, terrible history of World War II, a yellow beacon of hope that waited patiently in the ocean to save lives, no matter which uniform they wore. Thanks so much for watching. It's these lesser-known stories that often give us the most interesting perspectives on history. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of the past. Let me know in the comments what you think. Could you imagine sharing a tiny space with an enemy pilot? Until next time, stay curious.